Alrighty, welcome to part 3 of Project Nickel and Dime, and today we're going to focus in on the brake installation. Last time we put on new discs for the front, and Davis went ahead and finished up during the week
for the driver's side, right?
For the driver's side. And today is going to be master cylinder,
brake pedal,
booster, and proportioning valve.
Alright.
All from Stainless Steel Brake Company. Let's get started.
Let's do it, man.
So before you get started, make sure to have your parts ready to go, including the flaring wrenches and bending tools. And then, you know, your basic sockets and screwdrivers, etc.
Alright, you know the benefit of not having an engine in here when we're doing this? Get to everything. Look at that. Who doesn't like space?
Okay, first step is to disconnect the brake lines at the master cylinder. Make sure that you're using the appropriate wrench, which would be the flaring wrench, so you don't strip things out.
Believe it or not, I was able to actually get an open-ended wrench on this front line here, which is actually the rear brake system.
Okay, after you get the lines disconnected, next step is to remove the bolts that secure the master cylinder to the booster or the master cylinder to the firewall.
Alright.
If no booster is present. So yank that baby.
Alright.
So before we can pull it all the way out, we need to disconnect it from underneath.
So if you're not totally uncomfortable doing this, you're not doing the job right, because you always have to get under the dash and get into a contortionist position to get to anything under here. But what I'm looking for is the little cotter pin that basically holds the master cylinder push rod loop around the brake pedal. And being that I'm sort of in the dark here with one hand, it's always a trick. And I can't see anything now. Okay, while I was underneath the dash, I pulled the pin to remove the eyelet from the master cylinder to the brake pedal, which is the brake pedal switch. So the brake pedal switch is out, and I also pulled the cotter pin out so I can drop out the actual brake pedal, because they are different. Now, this should just pop right on out. There you go.
So there's a piece that goes through there.
Your stoplight switch actually fits around this, and also connects to your brake pedal, which goes down to the floor. So that's how that works. So every time you push on your brake pedal, it puts contact with the brake pedal switch, and that's what makes your stoplights come on. This is a relatively newer master cylinder.
Okay, at this point we're stuck a little bit. This is the new booster. We've got 3 bolts, maybe 4, to get this thing attached, but our space doesn't have those holes. So time to jump online and do a little research. Okay, so after a little bit of research and online, we found that these top holes were from the original factory, that if this did come with power brakes, that's where it would have been. So we found a template online, and we're going to actually use the bracket to drill out those holes, so we got a place to put it, and we're going to have to remove a little bit of material on the top side so that the booster will fit in the hole. And then there's a whole other brake pedal issue which we'll get to.
Alright, so all I did was pull the pin out from the brake support bracket underneath the dash, which when you're looking at it from this right view, you'd pull the pin out this way and the pedal drops right out of the support. Obviously this is where I pulled out the cotter pin, and wow, that's 47-year-old bushings there. So in our build, hopefully we won't have to drop the whole entire brake support. Alright, so here you can see the exact difference between the non-power and the power brake pedals. Obviously the power, you get a little more leverage when you push down on it. The boost kicks in and you get a lot less foot travel and foot effort to actually stop the car.
And then on the bracket, this goes in a higher hole on the bracket.
Correct, because your brake pedal support actually goes all the way up to here underneath the dash, and you're going to put this bolt through the top, which would be going through this point, and your stoplight switch will still be installed here.
So in our application we got lucky and the hole was there.
Yeah, the hole was there.
So some of the research that we were doing said that we might have to pull out the whole
support, drop the steering column. Yeah, I don't think I have to do that, because I'm looking at it, and if I get the orientation for the bolt the right way, I can get a ratchet on there and then get the nylock bolt, or not bolt, the nut on the other side, and get it to grab, and we should be good to go.
Alright, we're starting to make some progress. With the mounting bracket in place, we're scribing a line to enlarge that hole so that we're being more accurate than a paper template. And then we'll come back and grind it and fine tune. But everything seems to be lining up. Don't forget to scribe that bottom hole.
I already got that one.
Okie dokie.
Alright, can't cut butter. New bit. Alright. That one, that one.
Since we don't have the proper tool to enlarge that hole, we're running a series of smaller holes and then try to bust it out that way. We also have all our other mounting holes drilled and all lined up.
This don't look pretty.
There we go.
Dang. Detroit metal, baby. Good place to get a tetanus shot.
So the hole's enlarged. Putting the mounting plate on. And then we'll try to get the booster to slip in like it was meant to be.
All right, after a good hour of drilling and grinding and drilling and grinding and cutting, I think we finally have a super tight fit. So we'll check the underneath the dash and see how it lines up.
So the key was getting the hole's aligned and then large enough to get a little bit of wiggle room.
That's the key, man.
And you know, these go on the back. If you had to, you could always put a washer.
Yep.
So in hindsight, we should, instead of trying to be super careful, we probably should have just went ahead and drilled bigger holes.
Yeah, you're always a little timid about drilling big holes because you can't make them any smaller.
Very true.
Of course.
So the next logical step would be to put a few of those nuts on the back while we address the pedal next.
I think that thing's going, dude. Nice.
Okay, obviously we had problems getting that bushing in.
Good times.
So we greased it, we hammered it, ended up having to heat it, but yeah,
It's in.
that's in.
Alright. Alrighty, let's see. Now with my third hand, I'm just gonna reach up in there and get that bolt in.
Okay, so we didn't get as far as we wanted to today.
No. Okay.
Yeah. The booster took a bit too long to put in with the alignment, and now we're having issues with getting the pedal up into place and being able to get the bolt all the way through. It's pretty tight.
It's very tight.
And there's very little space in there. So we're stopping so that the frustration doesn't break something. Our other option would be to pull out the whole bracket,
Right.
but that involves
dropping the steering column and maybe disconnecting the rag joint at the steering box. I don't know. So I mean, all it is one bolt. So I'm gonna keep trying.
come back to it. You know, maybe
just fish something through.
yeah. I'm thinking maybe get a dowel in there to help with the alignment, because and then push it through because it's a very tight squeeze under there and not a lot of space to work. So we'll work on that, and once that's done, we can move on to bench bleeding the master cylinder. Bolt that on, get the proportioning valve on,
Right. Some plumbing to do.
bend some lines.
Right.
But not today.
Not today.
Time for a beverage.
That's right. Alright, this is Davis back on the Mustang. Let's see what I can get done today. Hopefully get the brake proportioning valve in. That'll be this guy. And then hopefully install the master cylinder and do some bench bleeding and get the brakes set up for the front. Probably do some engine compartment cleaning, install a battery tray, and if I'm super ambitious, a couple power steering hoses. So we'll see what we get done today. Alright. So I had some trouble installing the brake pedal, I think we mentioned last time, but I realized you don't have to drop the steering column, you just turn the bolt around. So being in the instructions that I got online, they indicate that the head of the bolt goes on the driver's side and go through, but you're going to hit a portion of the cowl up here. So what you're going to have to do is turn the bolt around from the passenger side and go this way, and it'll go right on. It'll be kind of tight, but it'll go right on, and you will not have to drop the whole steering column down to get this bracket assembly off. Saves a lot of time, so FYI. What I'm going to do now is reinstall the stoplight switch. It came on the original brake pedal. Still going to orientate itself the same way onto this new brake pedal, which is right there. So I'll hook that up, and then I'll hook up my wire connector. That way it'll be all set, ready to go. So I got my brake pedal set here now. So as the usual slop do it, but I'll put a bushing in on the outside of the switch here on the left side, and then I'll put the cotter pin back through, and we should be good to go. Cool. Alright, according to the instructions, I'm supposed to disconnect this rear line from the distribution block and connect the proportioning valve in this line. So, looking at the logistics of the size of these two things, I'm going to have to move the original distribution block here from the original location. Probably going to move it over towards the shock tower over here and reconfigure some of these brake lines, obviously. But I don't want to raise it up too high because I'm going to have an issue of possibly hitting the hood spring, and I don't want to get too much in the way of the master cylinder, which is going to come out to about here. So that leaves me with very tight real estate. So if you know that's going on, you know it's going to be a party. So I got some work to do. Alright. Alrighty, well, after reading the directions, it indicates that the supplied 16-inch line, which is this guy right here, is supposed to connect to the master cylinder at the rear port, which is actually the front brake reservoir, and this is the rear brake reservoir. So I'm just doing a test fit with the master cylinder and where it lines up with the original location of the distribution block down here. I've got some original brake lines that would probably be best to replace these, and if needed I'll reflare the ends to get the right fitting on the ends of the tubes if necessary. This brass adapter came with the kit, so I may not have to change all of them, but again, looking at the orientation for some of this and the proportioning valve that's supplied, it's going to be super tight, so I may opt to install the proportioning valve down here and of course do some plumbing for the brakes. So I'll have to tear into it and see what we got. Well, I've had a snag trying to mount the master cylinder to these studs that are coming off the booster here. Apparently these are machine thread, not coarse thread, so I don't have any nuts on hand or nylocks that'll fit this particular thread pitch, so it looks like I have to run an errand, so it's always something. But I did manage to get this front line configured to fit the master cylinder loosely when it was sitting right in here, so that's a bonus. And then I still have to figure out some logistics for the bottom line. This is going to connect to my proportioning valve, and then I have to figure out how to rework a new 16-inch line for this one. Now this guy is the front brakes, so I want to make sure I get that dialed in right. Alright, I changed the orientation of the supplied short line here. That's going to connect to the bottom port on the distribution block. That gives me room to work with between the master cylinder and the existing brake line, which is this guy right here. So I'll reconfigure this band here. I disconnected the clip here to the firewall so I can have some real estate to work with and get this proportioning valve right in here. Should work out pretty good. So I've hit a snag here. This is a different size fitting than your typical standard fitting here. So I don't remember the name of the specific size for this, but this is what size is going to go into the proportioning valve. So I need an adapter that's something like this that'll fit onto here but reduces down to a fitting to accommodate the proportioning valve. Typical plumbing. Looks like an extra trip. Alright, so here's my roughed-in configuration. Got the new 16-inch brake line here, coiled it around, proportioning valve down here below, where I still can get my hand down in there, no problem, you can see it. Got the front line here, so that's ready to go on. Let's tighten this brass adapter here. I still have to get the machine threaded nuts for the master, but for a rough-in that's pretty good. Underneath you can see where the proportioning valve is. It connects to the back of the original distribution block, and then I'll get an adapter for this and connect it to the out port here on the proportioning valve. I don't want to cut the brake line, so I'll see if I can reconfigure it, bend it a little bit, because if you cut it, then I gotta flare it, and flaring tubing on a car is kind of a pain. So if I can get away with just one adapter fitting, that would be best. So I think overall this worked out pretty good. So
okay, here's where we're at. David's got the nuts, everything's roughed in. We still got to bench bleed the master cylinder, but we're going to wait till we're done with the rear brakes and kind of do it all at once as far as bleeding the system. So thanks for watching, and look forward to a bench bleeding video soon.